Joining me now is Michael Oren, former Israeli ambassador to the United States and one of the leading historians of modern Middle East. Ambassador Oren, I know you're speaking to us live from Israel. Thank you for taking the time. I know you've been in and out of bomb shelters. I can't imagine what it's like to be an Israeli right now, with hundreds of missiles being fired at Israel and, the sirens just going off. Tell us what it's like for all of you right now during this challenging time.
Well, first of all, great to be with you, Shireen. It is surreal. It is surreal. Listen, this is not the first time we've gone through this. We've actually been in war for close to 3 years now, and I've long ago lost track of how many times I had to run to that bomb shelter, and that's only our house bomb shelter. It's not the bomb shelter you have to run into if you're at the supermarket or if you're at the bank, and it's always there. This time is materially different because the bombs are so much bigger. The rockets that Hamas and Hezbollah shot at us, they're quite deadly, but they can contain maybe 50 to 100 kilograms, about 200 pounds of explosives. You're talking about here about almost a ton of explosives. That doesn't take down a building, it takes down a neighborhood. And if it hits your building, your being in your safe room may not be so safe. The safe room may be an oxymoron. So when the siren goes off, you always have that few seconds where you're not sure what it's going to hit. Yesterday or the day before, I've lost track, forgive me. There were two hits close by this house that shook this building to its foundation. It's a 14-story building, so it's quite powerful. And the folks in Washington keep on saying that they've knocked out 82% of the rocket launchers. Our feeling here is that someone in Tehran has not got that memo.
Well, tell me a
Hmm.
little bit about that because, the Trump administration has given them this 15-point peace deal to really,
Hmm.
have a ceasefire or so-called pause to all of this. And, they're saying we're not taking that deal. How do you see that? You have a lot of expertise in this area. What messaging is Iran trying to send to the world right now?
Well, I've just come off a TV program in Israel. I do Israeli media too, and I was on a panel discussion. And it is my lot to go against the grain on these panel discussions. So I was on with a lot of generals, and they were all saying that Israel has weeks to operate. That Trump is not going to back down. He's going to continue fighting. I had to beg to differ. I have a good sense of what's going on domestically in the United States, the kind of pressures the president is under, and that Israel has to operate with the assumption that the war can end any minute, and that we do not have time is not on our side. Certainly in Lebanon, if we're going to establish a new defense line along the Litani River, we better get to it. And if we have to knock out strategic assets in Iran, maybe we shouldn't be focusing on the besiege anymore, because apparently there's not going to be a popular uprising. We should take down their infrastructure, their ability to make weapons that can kill great numbers of Israelis. But everyone sort of jumped on me on this. But I just came home and heard the Israeli government say that they are operating on the assumption that the war is going to end on Saturday, on Shabbat. And so there's only one thing worse, Shireen, than being a false prophet, and that's being an accurate prophet.
Mm.
And last summer, I had a similar experience on that panel, the same panel discussion, where right after the 12-day war, everyone was very, they were sort of victory happy, doing laps and how we whooped the Iranians. And I said, wait a minute, I think the Iranians think they won because you have to see it from their perspective. And I'm going to get to your answer in a second why I say this. From the Iranian perspective, they don't care how many buildings get blown up. They don't care how many ships are sunk. They care at the end whether they survived and whether they stood up to the greatest superpower on earth with its most lavishly armed proxy, the state of Israel, and they're still standing. That's all they care about. They're just like Hamas. You ask anybody in Hamas who won the war in Gaza, they'll tell you that Hamas won the war because they're still standing, they still have their guns. Same thing. So we are playing, we're fighting a Middle East war by Western rules. And the reason Iran is rejecting those 15 points, it's not just rejecting 15 points, they're coming back with points of their own. They said the United States has to compensate Iran for the damages caused. America has to remove its troops from the Middle East. America has to give guarantees that it'll never again attack Iran in the future, and the United States has to recognize Iranian control over the Straits of Hormuz. That's their demands, and it may sound outrageous to American ears, but to my ears, it's totally predictable, and we are going to have to deal with that reality. I understand very much the pressures the president is under. I do. But we live in very different realities, Shireen. And if the United States does declare a ceasefire on Shabbat, I will understand it. But Israel's going to have to live with the ramifications of that decision.
Well, no one pays the price more than Israelis who are being bombarded. I mean, when you look at the map of Israel and you look at the sirens and what is happening, I mean, the entire country is on pause. And so I understand what you're saying. My question to you, though, at this point also is you talk about Lebanon, you talk about Hamas, you talk about what victory looked like for Hamas. Are the proxies now weakened to a point that if this war were to continue for just a few more weeks, we would be able to actually say the proxies are now annihilated to the point where Israel is safe and America is safe from this ideology?
That would be the least of it. What hangs in the balance here is the future of the entire Middle East, not just the proxies. And I would go further. What hangs in the balance here is the global balance of power. Because if the United States is perceived as staying the course, being strong, the Russians will internalize that message. The Chinese will internalize that message. And we know how that works. We saw how when America withdrew, the way it withdrew, the huge humiliation of the withdrawal from Afghanistan, 6 months later, Putin invaded Ukraine. It's the way it works. There's no such thing as one regional, theater. It is a global theater. And there's a reason why and I'm sorry for being very poignant here, why the Gulf states, some of which, like the UAE, have been attacked more ferociously than Israel has. Why haven't they joined the war? The UAE and Saudi Arabia together have about 500 first-line fighter planes, and they have not joined in this war. They haven't joined the war precisely because they feared that the United States would declare a ceasefire and leave them with a very angry and wounded Iran. And I've been saying this now for several weeks. This is why they're not joining the war. They're waiting to see. And I understand them as well. I understand them as well. So we are at a hinge of history where everything can change. And I mean everything. I mean that peace could break out across the Middle East, that you could have peace with Israel in Lebanon, peace with Israel in Syria, peace with Israel in Saudi Arabia. But beyond that, you could have a strategic arc that extends from the Mediterranean to the shores of the Ganges under a Pax Americana, a total game changer. Or we go back. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with this negotiation. We don't know whether the Iranians will ever accept any of these 15 points. And the 15 points, we should state, means that Iran will not have a nuclear program. It will not have a ballistic missile production program. It will not have support. It will not support the terrorists. It will take the 1,000 pounds of highly enriched uranium it has and ship it out of the country, and it will reopen the Straits of Hormuz. That's in the 15 points. My best guess, though, knowing the Iranian MO, would be to get into a negotiation that would last for weeks, months, drag it out. Very hard to renew fighting after that. We learned that lesson in Gaza. And begin to sort of wear down those 15 points, dilute them. And at the end, you could have an Iranian regime which has paid a very heavy price. But again, what they care about is winning. And what they mean winning, they mean survive. And they don't think in terms of weeks and months or even years. They think in terms of decades. And they will begin to rebuild. And if, as part of the deal, sanction relief will come to Iran, and the Iranian economy will be able to revive, we're going to be back where we were, a month ago, within maybe 5 years, and we'd have to do it again under maybe much more adverse circumstances, maybe with a different president in the White House. And we have to think about that. This is our lot in this country. I always say that our tactic is our strategy. Since 1948, every couple of years, someone's tried to kill us. And every couple of years, we hit them on the head, and we send a message that it's not a good idea to try to kill us. And in between those hits on the head, we develop what is, by any international criteria, maybe the most successful nation state on earth, and certainly with the most successful army on earth per capita. And every once in a while, some leader on the other side gets hit on the head a little bit too often, decides to make peace with us, an Anwar Sadat or a King Hussein. So it's not all grim. nonogram. But this is our, in a way, this is what Jewish history has been like too. It's not like this is new for us. So I know I sound pessimistic. I'm just realistic. I'm very optimistic in the long run that Israel is coming out of this with the reputation of a not just a regional superpower, but a superpower on an international level. On an international level, we have tonight they're calling up 400,000 reservists, Shireen. If you were to put that in American terms, a ratio, it'd be the equivalent of about 24 million Americans being called up to service, active service. That is about 8 million Americans more than fought in all of World War II, with an army that's more than twice as large as the British and French armies combined, and an Air Force which has now conducted thousands, probably thousands of sorties, which each one is more than 1,000 miles long, and we haven't lost a single airplane. So on a global level, we are a superpower. So, okay, we're going to have to deal with perhaps a revived Iran and perhaps with the United States, whose reputation may be different after this war. Maybe. I say that cautiously. We don't know tonight. But for the state of Israel, there are huge benefits also to this war.
This operation has really shown the world what allyship looks like. We have never seen in modern history an allyship like Israel and America, and how they are flying side by side, speaking together in English for a common goal to make sure to create peace in the West, right? Same values, same mission. If you had the opportunity to speak one-on-one with President Trump and give him your advice on how lasting peace in the region looks, not just as far as security, but ideology, as we know, is penetrating in the West and in our universities and our schools, what would be your advice on this so-called ceasefire on Saturday?
Well, let me just say to your point about the alliance. Okay, I actually don't know an example in history at all. Not even the U.S. and Britain during World War II. I don't know if they were as close as we are. The Powhats flying wing to wing. But one thing is categorically clear, which is that the United States has one, I stress one, dependable military ally in the world today, and I'm sitting in it. Just one.
That's right.
My advice to the president would be as follows. You have an opportunity not to be one of the greatest presidents of all time. You have an opportunity to be one of the great leaders of all time on a global scale, to truly make peace. And that is not it is painful. It is involved with sacrifice. It means going against public opinion, going against many things. And it's not easy. I would not in any way diminish the difficulties of this. But that is the opportunity, and I say this as an Israeli, as a Jew, as an historian, as a veteran, a diplomat. Everything in my being tells me that this is the moment where everything can change.
And can anything change if we keep the IRGC in power?
Well, an IRGC that doesn't support terror, that doesn't want a nuclear program, that does not build the long-range ballistic missiles, is not the IRGC anymore. It's something different.
Well, you understand this
Okay.
better than anyone else. I mean, you're a historian, so you understand this ideology within the IRGC. So if someone else within this ideology rises up, isn't that more of the same? Don't we have to get rid of the entire government in order to bring someone new in place to have long-lasting peace?
You could probably a likelier scenario is you have someone from the IRGC coming up and makes a deal with Trump and then cheats on it. Okay. Listen, we had an Iranian regime that was telling us again and again that they had no ballistic missiles that had a range more than 2,000 kilometers. And oops, turns out they have one that has 4,000 kilometers. Let me get this straight. The Iranians lie. Is that possible? Yes, they lie, and they will lie and cheat. So, it's possible. I'm just very doubtful that they can change their DNA. And this is what this regime is about. It's their raison d'etre. And you can bomb them to the last one. If there's one last standing, they're still going to uphold that DNA.
So do you see a possibility where you can actually go in and remove them and bring in a completely new government where you no longer have to deal with this, death to America, death to Israel scenario?
Well, I wrote a piece for Fox News online the other day called How This War Ends. And I took issue with those people who are comparing it to Iraq and Afghanistan. It's not Iraq and Afghanistan. The model is the Cold War. During the Cold War, you have periods of intense military activity, but mostly you have naval blockades such as we had on Cuba. You have containment policies, and you could do that with Iran. You prevent a single drop of oil from being exported from Iran. You can do many things. Yes, there's a military stage now, but that doesn't have to continue indefinitely, particularly after Iran's offensive capabilities are neutralized and they're not firing these rockets at us. But that requires staying power. It requires being you know, an Eisenhower, a Ronald Reagan. It requires that type of commitment, that type of spine. And it also requires the American people. I'm not just talking about the president. The American people have to say, okay, we're willing to make this sacrifice. Now, the administration could not get high marks in explaining why it went to this war, which was a source of great frustration for me because the case for going to this war was slam dunk, Shireen.
Can you
Slam
explain it
dunk.
for us? For those who don't understand it, please
Yeah.
explain it for us.
Well, let's start with this. You have a regime that comes into power in 1979. Every single day since then, it says that its reason for being, its raison d'etre, is to destroy the United States of America. And it's not just rhetoric. Since 1979, the Islamic Republic of Iran has committed thousands, and I stress thousands, of acts of war against the United States, whether it's taking over an embassy or blowing up an embassy or blowing up a Marine barracks or kidnapping and executing Americans, to killing Americans in Iraq, to trying to assassinate the President of the United States and other senior officials. The president made a very big case against Venezuela as a drug exporting country. Hezbollah, Iran are deeply, deeply involved in the drug trade in the United States. It is literally thousands. During the last 2.5 years of war, since October 7th, 2023, Iranian proxies have conducted hundreds of attacks against American targets in the Middle East. Every single one of them is an act of war. Every single one of them is an act of war. Now, people will say, well, there's no imminent threat. And I would ask them to go and talk to Bill Clinton and ask him if he had a chance today to go back and prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon by using a preemptive strike, would he do it? I guarantee you he would have done it. So the whole idea is you don't wait for a country that's telling you that's going to destroy you, that is assiduously producing the means to destroy you. You don't wait for them to get those means. You don't. And the whole
Really?
question of imminence, is completely irrelevant here. I mean, if you could, ask Winston Churchill, who in the 1930s was saying, the Nazis are not an imminent threat now, but they were going to be an imminent threat. And we've got to act now. And he was right. And there's another aspect to this, and this is, I guess, a personal thing, a visceral thing, is that in the massive arguments against this war that you'll read in the New York Times and the Washington Post and just about every publication outside of the New York Post, there's a total moral meltdown. There's no moral component. There's no notion that this is an evil regime that has killed tens and tens of thousands of people around the world and killed thousands and thousands of its own people. And if America can't stand up to evil, then these are the people, particularly on the American left, who supposedly care about something, have a moral compass. Well, there's no compass here, and to me, it's very despairing. It's depressing.
We have seen what's happened in Europe. And I feel that if we don't stand up morally and ethically and do what's right, America's next. Everyone has always felt that America is, freedom for all and accepts all. And do you not feel that if we don't finish this war, that the Islamists will move in and take over America as they have all of Europe?
That I think, well, I don't know about America, certainly with Europe, but the claim by Tucker Carlson and others that somehow Israel and the United States are leading the world into World War III. No, they're actually preventing World War III. It's just the opposite. It's just the opposite. You're preventing World War III because this war broke out weeks before China was able to supply Iran with ground to ship missiles, land to sea missiles, which would have made what the U.S. Navy is doing now very, very difficult indeed. The situation will not be static. The Russians, the Chinese will be there. The Russians were trying to supply Iran just now. We bombed their supply trains in the north. It won't be static. And Iran will internalize lessons from this war, and they will be far, far more formidable foe in the future. And it won't be so easy. So we're preventing the outbreak of World War III. And I think that these extraordinary Israeli pilots who are flying these missions have the weight not just of Israel's defense on their shoulders, they have the weight of the world on their shoulders. And what I know is they know it too.
So for all of those, isolationists who say America first, tell me in a short soundbite why this operation is America first.
It is totally America first because the responsibility of the American government is first and foremost the security of the people of the United States. And going to war against this evil empire, would-be empire, is putting America first. And the people who are the isolationists are actually putting America last.
Absolutely. Ambassador Oren, I know that you are jumping from media to media and from safe room to safe room, and I really admire you and I thank you. And I wish we could clone you so that,
I wish I could clone myself.
I wish we could
It's
clone you just because
a
you speak
lot.
from a
Yeah.
place of history and it's all
Yes.
factual. And when you send out warnings, it's because you know better. You've seen this playbook before, and we appreciate your wisdom. Please keep spreading the good word.
Thank you.
True
Take
honor
it,
to
take it
have you.
delighted. Thank you.
True honor to
All
have
right.
you
All
today.
right.